So, die Gelddruckorgien sind ja schon im Turbo-Modus und es geht hier prinzipiell um alle Zentralbanken, aber ein Artikel, der hier ganz besonders heraussticht von einem meiner also deutschsprachigen Lieblingsexperten oder wirklich laserfokussierten Experten zur Volkswirtschaft, Makroökonomie, Zentralbankensystem, Freiheit und anderen relevanten Themen ist Dr. Markus Krall. Es gibt eben diesen Artikel, den ich ursprünglich zum Audio quasi lesen wollte oder zum Audio machen wollte, nur da warte ich noch auf die Bestätigung oder auf das Okay des veröffentlichten Magazins Satoshis Einblick. Da habe ich noch keine Antwort bekommen und sobald dieses Okay da ist und die Übersetzung dann auch vielleicht meldet sich auch jemand freiwillig, ein Native Speaker aus Deutschland oder wo auch immer, der diesen deutschsprachigen Artikel oder kann auch ein englischsprachiger Native sein, übersetzt, und das würde ich dann gerne auch sowohl auf Deutsch als auch auf Englisch als Audio konvertieren quasi und veröffentlichen auf meiner Podcast-Plattform, auf YouTube oder wo auch immer. Und zwar geht es um diesen Artikel hier. Okay, now I can speak English because I was a little bit confused because I thought I was gonna speak German first, but okay. So the original idea was to translate this article by Dr. Markus Krall, one of my favorite analysts in the German-speaking area when it comes to macroeconomics or understanding the root causes, you know, of all this shit that we are in. It's on Einblick.de. It's in German, unfortunately, so I'm waiting for a okay confirmation of the publishing magazine, which is called Einblick, which I haven't received yet. So what I would love to do is actually to make this to audio, turn this into audio for, you know, listeners, for those people who prefer to listen to podcasts or whatever. So Dr. Markus Krall already gave me his okay, but he just said, you know, maybe I should ask the publishing magazine Einblick first, or at least, you know, inform them. So I'm waiting also for someone to translate this article into English. Could be maybe a native English speaker who you know, who is fond, you know, who is also in command of the German language, but I could try that too, you know. So anyway, so this is the article, and literally the title would be "When the Money Printing Orgy Would Come to an End," right? And in essence, it's about, you know, when are we going to see not only inflation, but hyperinflation and the destruction, the crash of the euro, most probably in 2021, maybe procrastinated sometime later. It doesn't really matter, it's just a matter of time, but not too much time. So essentially, I'm not going to like literally like translate it word by word, but the most important passages or paragraphs or, you know, text, I will translate it as, you know, as good as I can. So what Dr. Markus Krall is saying is that he says, you know, we could say, you know, with pretty precise certainty when the madness which you know, which we can somehow that we can somehow save the world with freshly printed money, which could be, of course, it's not only literally meant, but I guess also the digitally printed money out of thin air, when it would come to an end. So the dollar would fail much later than the euro, and also serve as a escape currency, right? But only when the euro has already, you know, reached the black hole of, or somehow sunk into the black hole of hyperinflation. And essentially what he's also saying is that there is no discussion about the consequences of this, insane, deranged monetary politics without the inevitable notice that the European Central Bank has somehow, shut all of their, ammunition, and that they, somehow could, for I don't know, for eternity, kick the can down the road, as we say, right, in English. So eventually, this could happen, for a long time without any inflationary effects or consequences. But even the greatest skeptics of the monetary politics are really baffled and surprised, and how long this could go on, right? And the European Central Bank has been kicking and is kicking the can down the road, right? But how long is the road is the question which Dr. Markus Krall is asking. Now, and then he further says, Dr. Markus Krall also says, I must confess, I do not belong to those who are baffled on this planet, and definitely not when it comes to the topics of the boundaries of the monetary politics. And then he further says that he says, I'm not a fan or advocate of the hypothesis, which you can say with pretty certainty, when this madness, this insanity, that you could save the world with freshly printed money, or also digital printed money out of thin air, somehow save the world, and that it could come to an end, and that it has eventually reached visibly its end, right? The end of the road, sort of. And then something really important, what he's talking about is the seigniorage capital of the central banks. Now, we've heard, in Austrian economics, or when we talk about Bitcoin, seigniorage, right? It's also called rent seeking in English. So he explains it this way. He says, seigniorage capital of the central bank. This point is reached when the central bank has somehow used up or exploited the account of their own, seigniorage capital. Now he says, I know that the terminus, somehow terminology of seigniorage is pretty old-fashioned, and that of the seigniorage capital not in use at all, right? But he says it doesn't matter. That doesn't make a difference, because despite that, or in lack of that, in lack of a better terminology for a description of this matter at hand, he wants to go sort of into a debate, right? Now, what do we understand when it comes to seigniorage or seigniorage capital? Now, Markus Krall says, I define it in parentheses. He says price level neutral seigniorage. He considers that as a profit, which the central bank, through the usage or through the exploitation of their money printing, money creation monopoly, achieves, right? And which somehow is provided then to the state, to the government, right, to the nation state, but without somehow without affecting the price enhancement or the leveling up of the prices in the overall economy. Now, then he asked the question, when is the value of the money monopoly, or what is the value of the money monopoly of a central bank? Now, he goes into, into this velocity of money circulation and all that, which is more or less, I guess, also maybe a remnant of the Keynesianism economics, this brainless economics, which Keynes has somehow come up with, but it doesn't matter, right? So, and other, MMT economists like to talk about it, but maybe there's a point. So he says, when it comes to a constant velocity acceleration, right, or speed of the money, which is sort of adequate to the profit potential of an inflation-free money creation, which is somehow created through technical progress, technical innovation, labor division, right? More and more granular, labor division in the respective currency space or currency, sections, right? Now and then he says, let's just assume that this growth is 3%, so that the central bank can somehow skim off every year 3% of the gross domestic product, right? GDP. It's called BSP in German, but in an inflation neutral way, right? They just skim it off, right? So, and then he continues, he says, we know, thanks to the enlightenment of the, he means literally the enlightenment, the wisdom of the Austrian economics or the Austrian, scholars, that this leads to other different distortion, right, of the product allocation, and therefore to a misallocation, right, to a general misallocation, and to a non-justifiable distribution effects. But the inflation is not doesn't exist there yet. It's not like an immediate punishment, right? So, and then he has this subtitle. It's called the ECB as a stock, right? As a stock dividend, like dividend stock of politics. And then he says, let's have a look at the central bank as if it were, a stock holding company, right? So this skimming off the profit is comparable with the annual, with the annual dividends that is somehow paid out, right? And there is sort of a payment cyclus within many periods, which can be considered as sort of a stock evaluation. Now, to assess that, he goes into the which I'm not an economist. I'm not, these are really special terminology, but he somehow talks about interest rates, the cash value of all, future seigniorage payments to the state or to the nation state, to the government, and the central bank will then, become, in a way, to in a nation-owned or state-owned stock company, whose value is is derived from the sum of the cash values of the future seigniorage dividends, right? So now it says the interesting thing here is if you want to assess the value of a central bank, we don't have to know the numbers of the long-term growth, and nor do we have to know the numbers for the off interest of the interest rates, right? Now, he says, Markus Krall then continues, he says, it is enough, it is sufficient to know that a natural growth and a natural interest rate are identical in the long term. Now, if the interest rate is above the growth or growth rate, so the somehow the yield, right? The yield of the credit portfolios will be somehow drowned under or just pulled under through insolvencies, right? Because the necessary yields in order to serve, you know, the burden of the interest rate cannot be economized, cannot be produced simply. So when the interest rate is lower than the growth, right? So the demand for, you know, for investive resources pulls it up, right? Because up to this point, at this, you know, at this given growth, there are investment opportunities unused, right? They're just bare, right? They just laying bare, and they're not used. So he goes into, you know, dividends and interest. So without going into, because that would just I wouldn't even know how to explain that even in a layman terminology. But he says the seigniorage capital is 3% multiplied by the gross domestic product divided by 3% as an example, right? Equals 1 times GDP. Now he says if the growth is 2%, so the natural interest rate on 2%, and the result would then be the same, would be equal. And he says it's a really miraculous identity, which then says the seigniorage capital is used up once the amount of, you know, of those assets, of those asset values which are not covered by, you know, by real assets such as, you know, such as gold or you know, or bonds which usually, you know, have to be paid back, right? So because of that, and it's not covered, somehow the money that is somehow given out in the fiscal balance sheet of the central bank, or in the balance sheet of the central bank, somehow supersedes the annual gross domestic product of the currency zone. Now comes the most important part. Sorry about that if I'm, you know, just rambling, but these are really, I'm just trying to, you know, translate this as clearly as possible. Now, the European Central Bank has used up to now approximately 65% of the value. And in 9 months, Dr. Markus Krall said it will be all used up by 100%. Now he says, let's look at the euro, because we can say that the gross domestic product, right, of the Eurozone before the start of the crisis was about 10 trillion euros, right? And with a little bit, you know, with fantasy and a little bit luck, it could be after 6 months of total mismanagement, and after all this, you know, this so-called sacred virus, this coronavirus, which has been centrally planned and it totally in a madness of political, through a political class, elite class, has come somehow to a staggering 8.5 trillion euros, maybe a little bit less. Now he says in 1999, the balance sheet, right? The balance sheet of the European Central Bank was below $700 billion. And with the crisis of 2007 and, you know, the consequential state debts, national debts of and the euro crisis, it was raised to about 4 trillion euros. Now, since the beginning of the current crisis in March of 2020, it went exponentially. I mean, not exponentially, but extremely fast to approximately 6.5 trillion euros. Now, if we take the premise that this European Central Bank possesses, right, owns approximately $1 trillion of value assets, of real value assets. Now he says in a side note, he says their state bonds are in the face of the real credibility of the bonus, not the bonus, what do you call it, the creditworthiness, right, of the countries, of the EU member countries, which you can only call as payment default, right? That's the best terminology he can come up with. Payment default. Now, and then he says that because of the current purchase orgy of valueless, there's no value, right, behind those assets. There's a balance sheet of they can somehow stretch it up to 9.5 trillion euros until the whole house of cards just falls, just collapses, right? So with the recent velocity of this money printing orgy, money printing insanity, they will bring up like 3 trillion euros in about 9 months in circulation. And when the inevitable saving of the bank, right, will become necessary, or the rescue, right, the bailout will eventually become necessary before that even happens, right? Then it will even this whole process will then accelerate much more faster, right? Now, he says, and then he somehow compares that to Germany, Zimbabwe, and Venezuela. He says the historical experiences in Germany, Zimbabwe, if you've heard, the $100 trillion Zimbabwe note, right, and Venezuela, it shows that somehow the sentiment with the reaching of the tipping point will be overheated very soon. So the companies and the citizens will commit capital escape, because right, there's no other way, right, out of this money, out of this hyperinflationary money, or they would just spend it as soon as possible, right? High time preference, you just spend it before it's worth nothing or worth much less. And which then the next consequence would be a total the chain reaction of a hyperinflation. Now he says the velocity of this circulation of the money explodes. The price level will become worse and worse, through the stratosphere. And then all of a sudden, he says cynically, we are all millionaires. And then shortly after, there will all be, billionaires. And a week later, maybe even, trillionaires. Now, he says, take that, Mr. Bill Gates. Okay. So he's really funny. And then he says, And then it talks about, you know, the bear trap of the dollar. And it says, you know, if you're looking somehow with you know, and making fun maybe of the United States, the Fed, and that the Fed, you know, is actually printing their dollars much faster than the European Central Bank, you know, in the EU, then you're going to be, you know, crushed in your hopes, because that, you know, that somehow in your hopes that the dollar will fail much sooner, and you'll be disappointed, right? And the reason is simply that the currency union, the currency zone of the US dollar is much bigger, right? Because of their international reserve currency function, right? Because of their the anchor function, right? Not only as international reserve currency, but also for the dominant global trade. I mean, I don't know how much it is, but it's a lot. It's a really, it's astronomical, right? It's like 65-70%, depends like what trade are we talking about, but it's like somewhere between 65-70, maybe even the 80% of the global trade. Now, the economical space, economical zone of the US dollar is much bigger, right? Now, the Siniraj capital, which he explained before that, is approximately double, or maybe even the triple of the gross national product of the United States, right? So this is why the dollar will fail much later, and will somehow serve as an escape currency. Once the euro will be somehow, you know, shot into the black hole of the hyperinflation, or sunk into the black hole of hyperinflation. And the current dollar-euro exchange crisis, he calls it a bull or a bear trap. Now, depending on which side of the currency you are or you interact with. And then he continues, he says, this is the reason why I do not have any hopes, why I do not have any trust in the euro that it will survive until the end of 2021. And this is something, right? I mean, just digest that. Because especially when Markus Krall says that, right? Because he's like a super laser focused economist. He knows exactly root causes and the consequences, you know, the source of this of this whole you know, criminality. Now he says, and the euro will somehow explode within the exploitation of the Siniraj capital in the hyperinflation, right? So, you know, it will just hang itself. That's the wisdom. That's the end of the wisdom. And then until then, the euro will be somehow saved, you know, beyond death, right? And as the former ECB president said, whatever it takes, or whatever it undertakes, whatever he said, I don't know, whatever it takes, I think he said, right? So whatever it takes means infinite, eternal printing with its physical and most importantly digital printing of fiat money, of euro, dollar, whatever fiat money out of thin air. And as long as you don't, you know, create those new structures, and this is why I'm imploring you, I'm asking you, please help me, help us, my cooperation partners, filmmakers, Bitcoiners, economists, macro investors, graphical sound makers, music makers, all those people who will be cooperating with me in, you know, for this beautiful idea I have, which I'm going to show you. And I will I implore you to, you know, I really ask you to read this short brainstorm article that I, you know, published recently. It's called Human Life Rooted in Bitcoin for all born and unborn children of humanity. And I you know, start off by saying that some of the standard questions I often ask my guests on my show, Total Bitcoin, is the following. How do you envision humanity's future with Bitcoin as the monetary root layer? How would the life of the average person look like practically, right? Or be transformed in a society or civilization based on Bitcoin? How can you imagine a Bitcoinized or hyper-Bitcoinized world on a monetary, economical, social, structural, scientific, technological, and spiritual level? Now, spiritual, you can, exchange it with the word ethical, right? Logical, rational, ethical, sustainable, whatever you want to call it, like truly sustainable. I'm not talking about this, bullshit sustainability of the United Nations, which is a total agenda by itself. Anyway, and then what is the imagination, dream, and comprehension of a monetary revolution rooted in Bitcoin? And I continue, I say, every time I ask my guests, hardly anyone, like really just a few, maybe start, going into the rabbit hole, like realistically, like what the future could look like all the Bitcoiners out there, the macro economists, macro investors, all these Bitcoiners, the libertarians, and all these freedom-seeking people, they all love, freedom and Bitcoin and whatever, but they cannot articulate a crystal clear sentence, or or they just say, by default, I don't know, maybe I don't want to speculate, I don't know what the future looks like. Well, excuse me, sir, excuse me, madam, if you're not, I mean, I'm literally, I mean, if we as Bitcoiners in the Bitcoin community, if we libertarians, freedom-seeking people, if we truly want to change something, if we truly want to see a better future, prosperous future, an abundant future, a transformational future, a happy future, a joyful future, then, if we don't have enough conviction, trust, and comprehension, and, a real vision for the future, how are we expecting, how are we supposed, to expect other people, the 95 to 99% of humanity, to have some kind of hope, trust, vision, comprehension within Bitcoin, around Bitcoin, on Bitcoin, right? So that's what I said, that's what I wrote. I said hardly any of my interviewed guests can describe a concrete specific idea, personal level, even if it's on a personal level, dream, vision, realistic individual testimonial, some kind of, a story maybe in their head, what the future could look like in connection with Bitcoin, the very thing we Bitcoiners, most of all, are all so excited about and obsessed with. And without going into the emotional, psychological rabbit hole, I continue. I have the feeling, the reason for the usual default answer, I do not know what the future will look like, I don't want to speculate in the future, blah, 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 could also be the lack, maybe, of imagination, holistic comprehension, or the willingness, maybe the lack of intention, the lack of willingness to comprehend all the pieces of the bigger picture or the bigger puzzle on every level you can think of. Monetary, economical principles, true free market principles, structural, contractual protection of private property, liberty, health, freedom, socially, scientific, technologically, spiritually, ethically, transformationally, structurally, So anyway, so you can please read this. And at the end, I really ask you, my wish, my true wish and desire before I die, all right? In short, will you help me? Will you help all of us? Will you help yourself, your loved ones, your children, the children of your children, your family, your beloved ones, your friends, your society, your humanity, all of us, especially all the born and unborn children, of humanity. Will you help us? In any shape or form. It doesn't even have to be monetarily. If you are, a good graphic designer, a good animation designer, you can do music, whatever, produce music. You can, you have experience in filmmaking, whether it be documentary, any genre, thriller, movie, film, anything. If we can manage, if we achieve to pull together all our intelligence, our knowledge, our time, our creative resources, our skills, our talents, right? Everything. Like really connect the dots, connect one with another, like an interflow of communication, of cooperation, of true, like real building new structures, right? But we got to visualize this, because we cannot reach the 95 or 99% of the people with hyper self-adulating, hyper-intellectualized Bitcoin, economical theories, hypotheses, or whatever. Show them what it is like. I want to show them what it's like. It's so simple. Show them what it's like to live in a deflationary economics, with deflation technologies, with exponential 0 to 1 technological innovation, with true freedom, with true protection of liberty, health, freedom, life, security, right? And everything else is done through the source of money, through the language of money, through the communication of the hardest, scarcest, truly decentralized money, and that is Bitcoin. And with all the monetary properties you could have ever imagined, we couldn't even imagine that Bitcoin, would have existed one day, because it was unfathomable that we have a money, right? 1 Bitcoin equals 100 million Satoshis. It's divisible, it's portable, it's transportable, it is digital, it is unconfiscatable, it is unstoppable, it is truly decentralized, it is absolutely scarce. So you will have a deflationary society, a deflationary economics, deflation technology. You will pay less and less and less for better, more innovative products and services. Technologies we can't even imagine right now. Infrastructurally, transportation, energy production, energy efficiency, recycling, environment, anti-aging, whatever, molecular biology, anything, right? Medicine, health. So the first step would be to make a short video trailer, a teaser of, let's say, 5 to 10 minutes, just to give humanity. You don't even need to speak English. The people don't even need to speak English. We just show them the pictures, the visualization, the feelings, right? The reality of our future. What the future of a free humanity in a free private city, in a citadel, in a miniaturized society, whatever, or in a human civilization on this planet, or can look like once rooted in Bitcoin. Now, please support me, support us. Here's my emails are open, my DMs are open. My email is hello@thetotalconnector.com. I'm talking about real freedom, guys, ladies and gentlemen. I'm talking about real freedom. It's possible. We've been just so brainwashed, so indoctrinated, so dogmatized, so suppressed, so oppressed. And it doesn't matter which country. Some are more subtle, some are more obviously super repressive, oppressive, tortures just take Venezuela, Iran, Turkey, whatever, Africa. Look at this exploitation, the slavery that's been going on. It's time for evolution. It's time we raise our consciousness. We raise our evolutionary capabilities, right? We just lost the trust in ourselves. This is the problem. We lost the trust in ourselves. And now it's time, to connect to one another, to connect the dots, to zoom out, to see the bigger picture. To have all our children, the born one and the unborn one, really, blossom in their true creativity, in their true intelligence, in their true imagination, in their true skills and talents, in their true power, right? There is a future awaiting, and we can accelerate the process. This is the whole point also of this article, of my rant, of my podcast, of my YouTube videos, of my interviews, of this film project. Because people will not only see it, they will feel it, they will understand it, they will comprehend it, because it's evolution. We don't have fucking time for revolution. It's time for evolution. Right now, right here. Okay. So thank you so much. Please give it a like, share this article, share the videos, subscribe on my YouTube channel, subscribe on my podcast platform, please. You would really help me, help yourself, help humanity. Make this viral, accelerate this process of evolution, right? Share it. There's tons of materials out there. Books, podcasts, articles, videos, interviews in German, in English, in any other language. Most of them, I admit, I confess, it's mostly, as I do myself, mostly in English, but we're working on it, right? But there's Gigi, there's Knut Svanholm, there's there's Daniel Prince of Once Bitten on English podcast on Bitcoin, John Vallis, there's Stephen Levera, there is, I don't know, there's just so much stuff out there. So many brilliant, macroeconomists, analysts like Dr. Markus Krall, Dr. Thorsten Pollard, who of course, maybe they don't understand Bitcoin. It's good. All right. Okay. They're gold bugs. I get that. Now, everyone, I guess, has in their life some blind spots in their comprehension process. You can be the most intelligent, most knowledgeable person, but maybe you have some blind spots. All right. And that's why, there are some traditional economy, they don't understand that Bitcoin is itself, or the gold bugs, they don't understand that Bitcoin is it itself the free market. Is it itself, like Sven Schnieders also wrote articles on that. It is the free market. We don't have to wait for anyone's permission. You could literally, right, memorize 24 words, right, take all your, sell all your assets, put it into Bitcoin, put it in your head, memorize 24. I mean, you don't have to do that. There's other methods, right? Go over the borders, go anywhere, any other continent, country, and, you just put in 24 words again, and there you are. You have all your wealth again back in your hands. I mean, that's evolutionary. It's unstoppable. The cat is out of the bag. Pandora's box opened like a long time ago. Thanks to Satoshi Nakamoto, whoever you are. He, she, it, alien, extraterrestrial, whatever. Okay? All right. So I'm done for today. Thanks so much. Please follow me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Telegram, Twitter. My Twitter handle is Kevandavani. Please like me. Or follow me, write a positive review on any podcast platform, subscribe on my YouTube channel, on my podcast, on many different podcast platforms. Thank you so much again. Thank you so much for your vision, for your ethos, for your hopes, for everything you do, right, for humanity. And it's really time we wake up individually and collectively. My name is Kevan Davani. I'm the Total Connector and the host of the Total Bitcoin Podcast Show, and Total Connector wishes you a nice day.